Devansh, come. We'll go out. Come. Oh, do. No. Okay, don't shout. Okay. Hello everyone. Welcome to VENKANNA English Guru. Welcome to VENKANNA English Guru. Friends, yeah. A very good evening to all. Yeah, we'll be starting our class. A very good evening. Yeah. We'll be starting our class in just a minute. Wait for. And because we'll be starting a very wonderful chapter today, a new topic, that is Middle English period and short important summaries, which are very useful for our examination. And our examination, friends, stay tuned for a minute and we'll be starting our class in a minute. Yes, guys. Yeah, very good evening. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Yes. A very good evening. Yes, friends. Yes. Yeah, we'll directly go into the topic. We'll directly go into the topic. Yes. Guys. Yeah, yes. We'll be talking about our class. Friends, before we go into the topic, let us have a kind of recapitulation. And who is the father of English literature? Come on, can somebody type 1 or 2 bits? Maybe 2 or 3 bits. Who is the author of Piers Plowman? Come on, quick. I need quick responses. So you can give the answer in a minute so that we'll go faster. Yes, Chaucer, father of English literature. Morning star of English Reformation, John Wycliffe. And who is the morning star of English Renaissance? It is Chaucer, yes. And I told you a quote to remember the works of Chaucer. I told you a quote to remember the works of Chaucer. Can somebody say? Can somebody say? Yes. Who will say the answer? Yes, Srinivas. Yeah, Chaucer, I know. Yeah, wonderful, Prasad. RBPTHLs, very, very important. Friends, today I have plenty of stories to talk about, and I don't want to waste your time. And let us directly go into our topic. Yes, see. So we are, as I told you, I'm talking about a few summaries, maybe 7 or 8 important summaries, including the Canterbury Tales. Okay. So in the examination, you will get what the theme of Piers Plowman written by William Longland, what the theme of Sir Gavin and Green Knight, and what the first character in the Canterbury Tales, what the last character in the Canterbury Tales, what the prose tale that is composed in the Canterbury Tales, how many stories that Chaucer wanted to convey in through the Canterbury Tales, like that you will get. And the Canterbury Tales is actually composed in, and who is the host of the Canterbury Tales. And Troilus Cressida, what is the theme of Troilus Cressida? What is the theme of Book of Duchess? The Book of Duchess, which is written and on the death of Dash. These were the previous bits given in the examination, friends. That is what I'm going to talk about. A few stories, very short stories. And if it is required, I have used and 5 to 6 slides for every story you can see. And the first story that we are talking about is the King Square. So this is composed by King James I, who is the leader of the Scottish Chazurians. Leader of Scottish Azurians, King James I. And what is King Square? King Square, which means the King's Book. You will also get that. This is a semi-autobiographical in nature. So this book, which is actually autobiographical poem composed by King James I, the leader of Scottish Azurians. And this describes King's capture by the English in 1406 on his way to France and his subsequent imprisonment. This story and the King's Square, which talks about how he was caught by the English army, how he was imprisoned. That is what the story. Hence, it is semi-autobiographical poem. Next, by Henry, and Henry the Sixth was the ruler at the time when he was uh, when he was a part of Scotland, and his successors Henry the Five and Henry the Sixth uses and this poem, the King Square, which is actually composed in the Chaucerian rhyme scheme. What is Chaucerian rhyme scheme? You are all aware, and this is also called rhyme royal, which refers to a stanza that is composed in 7 lines, and the rhyme scheme is going to be ABA BBCC. Friends, I need one confirmation. Is my voice clear and am I audible? Am I visible properly? If yes, show me thumb. Quick, 1 or 2 responses. Quick. Yes, friends. If my voice is audible and if I am clear to you, just show me thumb. Come on, quick. Yes, thank you. Thank you. So this is something about King Square. So about the summary, you need to have 5 to 10 statements in your mind. It's a King's book written by King James I. It is a semi-autobiographical context. This talks about how he was imprisoned, how he was put under the bars. And this is composed in rhyme royal in 7-line stanzas and which rhyme ABA BBCC. That's it. Next, friends, and Pierce Plowman. Second story, you can see, my friends. Pierce Plowman. Several times in this bit featured. Pierce Plowman is written by. This featured in several times in the history of NET set. Next, what is the theme of Pierce Plowman? This is also a religious satirical poem. A religious satirical poem. Like several times this bit featured in the history of NET. So, Pierce Plowman, this is written by William Longland. This is written by William Longland. Great religious and satirical poem. This is actually, I can say in one word, this is a democratic poem which gives importance to different religions. It directly, indirectly makes a satire on the concept of Christianity. So William Longland can be considered a kind of Renaissance expert who talks about the importance of autonomy in religion, autonomy in society, autonomy in culture, autonomy from the church, autonomy from the clutches of the church, the clutches of the Bible, the clutches of the king. So according to him, according to William Longland, religion can be independent, which depends on the individual's autonomy. That's what it's a religious satire. It's a satirical poem. And this is a Middle English allegorical narrative, allegory. Friends, several times, allegory, which means, for example, let me tell you one practical example. Instead of scolding someone, we can say, and we can attribute to someone the names of animals, like pigs, like donkeys, like buffaloes. So, which means, and by that, the person feels inferior. So, like that. So, allegory refers to any, it can be a poem, it can be a novel, it can be a short story. This describes something under the guise of something else. So, allegory refers to any literary work that is described under the disguise of somebody or someone else. which means, for example, I wanted to make comment. For example, uh, Henry Fielding, and he had a lot of grudge on Samuel Richardson, and he composed Pamela, and he wanted to revenge on, he wanted to make fun of Samuel Richardson, hence he composed Shamella. So Shamella can be a kind of allegorical poem. It's a kind of parody kind of poem, like that. Allegory simply talks, it most of the times it is positive, exposes positive values, positive customs, positive beliefs, moral, cultural, ethical values. So this poem, Piers Plowman, which talks about, which is actually a satire on religion, but indirectly it says, and religion is a concept which is created by human beings, not by someone else. So, and as a human being, you need to respect everything. People who believe in religion, who believe in many religions, who and do not believe in religions, they are to be respected. That is what democratic system. So this is what the idea, that is this view which is exhibited by William Longland. So this is a Middle English allegorical narrative poem. It's a poem that is in the form of narrative. It's a kind of short story. It is written in unrhymed alliterative words, unrhymed, no particular scheme, either blank words or some particular kind of style is not employed. Divided into sections called and passus. This poem, which is actually composed, divided into passus, steps, influenced and Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. This book, Piers Plowman influenced Chaucer to write Canterbury Tales. Sometimes you will get a bit. Which of the following is a source for writing Canterbury Tales to Chaucer? You need to identify Piers Plowman by William Longland. So what becomes a source for writing Paradise Lost? What becomes a source for writing Canterbury Tales? Like, this is one of the bits that you get in the history of net examination. If you refer to out of 80, out of 100, you will get 1-2 bits like that. So what is the source for writing Canterbury Tales? And Piers Plowman. This influence, Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, contains the first known and a reference to literary traditions of Robin Hood tales. So this is actually composed in the form of Robin Hood kind of tales, and which is written by and Chaucer in terms of Canterbury Tales. A few points with regard to and Piers Plowman. Next, this is a mix of theological allegory. Yes, theological allegory and social satire, very, very important. So Piers Plowman, which is an example for social satire, religious satire, it's a comment on the society, it's a comment on religion, and it is theology, study of new knowledge, epistemology, study of new knowledge, theology, study of religion. So theological allegory, this narrative makes fun of a particular religion, and makes a religion elaborate in nature. For example, when you ask a person who gives a lot of priority to one particular religion, if you ask someone what is the best religion, someone says this. But a mature person says all religions are good. Every religion you will have good things and very wonderful good things if you think of. So that's what this story, it's theological allegory. This deals with the narrator dreamer's quest for the true Christian life. Very, very important. There's Piers Plowman, which is all about quest for, and what true Christian life means, according to and William Longland, the things that were written in the Bible, the things that were written in the book, and are not going to and help him to search for a real, true Christian life, according to William Longland. So it's a quest for Christian life in the context of medieval Catholicism, friends. And we will talk about Renaissance. So Renaissance is entirely against Catholicism. Hence, they talk about a new concept, that is Protestantism, Puritanism, which becomes. So, this movement, the process of speaking something against Catholicism, it begins from 1170. Remember, Sir Thomas Becket, he was assassinated. He is the first in 1170, and he is the first person who revolts against church, the Bible, and Catholicism and the king. And And William Longland is not directly making a comment on the concept of Christianity. Christianity meant only Catholicism, okay, during medieval period, and it took place a number of changes only during Restoration Age, during Renaissance. We'll talk about a lot. It's all about changes in terms of religion. So William Longland, he was not interested to make comment on religion directly. He wanted to. Most of the writers, they make comment indirectly. Hence, William Longland wrote Piers Plowman to make comment on the concepts of Catholicism. Next, this journey takes place within a series of dream visions. See, according to Sigmund Freud, something that is not going to happen in your personal life, that will happen in your dream. If you think. That is what psychoanalysis, where it talks about. You will have a lot of unfinished ideas, unfinished desires. For example, let me tell you one practical example. I wanted to meet Steffi Graf. And during my class 10, 8th, 9th, I used to read a lot of tennis stories. And I used to, and that was the time, and when Serena Williams and Venus Williams came into light, and that was the last stages of Steffi Graf and Andrew Agassi, and the popular tennis players at the time. And I used to read all this in the newspaper. And in my dream, I had an opportunity, and I thought of meeting them. But is it possible to a government school kid of normal medium? No. But I was thinking about, but in my dream, I got plenty of opportunities, and I met them several times, and I had photographs, I had wine with them, and different dreams that I had. And were they really true? No. Okay, those are in, because which means what you think you will get in your dream, what you think, what you ponder about, and several times, that is going to be your dream in the next and that day night. That is what the theory of Sigmund Freud. That's what. See, here William Longland wanted to make comment on the concepts of Catholicism. He thought several times, but was he able to make comment on the concepts of Catholicism? No, because it was the time of the greatest Catholicism. If you talk something, you are beheaded. And hence, this fellow, he had a dream, and he wrote all these ideas in terms of dream visions. You can see dream visions. Okay, these happen only in the dreams of the narrator, dreams of the poet, dreams of the central character, but these are not the reality ones. That this is a dream allegory. Piers Plowman, which is an example for dream allegory, dream satire. For example, you might have watched a wonderful movie, and I'll give you a lot of instances if you like. There is a popular movie in Telugu, Atidi, and the hero is Mahesh Babu, and the heroine Amrita Rao are one popular Bollywood lady. And in that, the heroine will have this movie is directed by Surendra Reddy, a wonderful popular director who produced Siren Narasimha Reddy, a popular movie. In that movie, Atidi, heroine, and she, in reality, she wanted to make comment, she wanted to beat different people, but she doesn't. But she goes into dream. In a dream, she beats some people, and she sits in the same place, but in a dream, she beats the principal or other comedians. But this happens only in a dream, not in reality. These types of the process of narrating tales, which you can say. For example, I have a lot of grudge to meet a lot of people, to beat a lot of politicians. Am I going to beat them? No. But I will imagine something, I'll be able to write something. That is what the story all about. So this is a dream vision. In that dream, the protagonist and is in the search for and a true Christian life. The dreamer seeks, among other things, the allegorical characters, and this includes a number of allegorical characters. Do well, do better, do best. These are sometimes you may get a bit, and do well or do better, do best are the important characters in dash. You need to know Piers Plowman. Next, friends, and Sir Gavin and Green Knight, another important text. We are talking about Sir Gavin and Green Knight, And what is important to you for the examination, that only I'm talking about, remember. So Sir Gavin and Green Knight, anonymous writer, nobody knows who wrote this, but the text is very important. Sir Gavin and Green Knight. This is written by Pearl poet. So Sir Gavin and Green Knight and Pearl both are written by the same poet. Who is the author? Nobody knows. So also known as Gavin poet. Gavin poet, but not Gavin is not the name. Next, it is perhaps the finest Arthurian romance. Yes, this is the, and several times this bit was asked, which of the following is the and finest chivalric romances in English literature? Sir Gavin and Green Knight, Eric Enoit, and not the author. Like there are plenty, and this is one of them. After a brief introduction, connecting the events of the story of mythical founding of Britain by the Trojan warrior Brutus, the story turns to and Christmas time at Camilton, where Arthur's court, a young and rowdy group, are about to celebrate a New Year's feast. So this is what all about the process of celebrating Christmas time, the process of celebrating a new year. Sir Gavin and Green Knight. Arthur and refuses to eat. However, until someone tells him of some adventurous or a miracle, and on the eve of New Year, and this character Arthur refuses to eat, and there is a story. Next, as if on cue. So, as if on cue, an enormous green knight on a green horse rushes into the court and challenges the court to a game. He will endure a blow from a knight if the knight will submit it to a blow here and a day later. So, there is a conversation between the knight and the Arthur, and where and what is the setting, what is the time, and celebration of a new year, and it was a Christmas time. Gavin leaps to the challenge and whacks the green knight as there is a fight with an axe, chopping off his head. However, the Green Knight does not die. You see, these kind of stories, even you will have a lot of stories in our Telugu. And for example, Veera Brahmanga Charitra, where the villain, one of the villains, and he comes and he wants to kill and that Veera Brahmangaru, but he doesn't die. And though there are many mythological stories like this, not just 1, 2, 3, there are plenty in our Indian scripts, in our Indian myths. That kind of myth story, that is Sir Gavin and Green Knight. He simply grabs his severed head, tells Gavin that to keep his honor, Gavin must find him in the Green Chapel and submit to the blow in a year and a day. The Green Knight rides out of the room and the stunned court returns to its festivities. So, the situation of celebrating the new year, which is disturbed by the duel between Arthur and the Green Knight and the Knight, where and this knight is beheaded, but again he is not beheaded. That this is what this kind of mythological story, which you can say chivalric romance, Arthurian romance. Next, friends, in the second part of the poem, the poet traces the cycle of the year through the liturgical calendar, moving from the new year to and Michaelmas to All Hallows Day. So it's a process of the different events that take place during and Christmas. Just as the year grows older, Arthur's court grows heavier with a trepidation of their beloved Gavin, who must ready himself for his ordeal. In some particularly lovely passages, the poet describes Gavin's preparations and gear for the journey, and the shield in particular is important for the religious significance and the shield significance of the poem. It is adorned with and penegritum as a token of and truth on the outside, on its inner surfaces of a picture of the Virgin Mary. So this is a kind of myth that is closely connected with the Catholicism, the kind of Christian story, mythological kind of story, not the story of Jesus. Next, friends, Gavin leaves the court as Christmas approaches, facing the wilds of northern England alone in his search for Green Chapel. Next, when he is nearly defeated by the weather, he prays to the Virgin for help. Suddenly, the castle, haunted desert appears, and Gavin finds himself welcomed by Lord and Lady Betlack and Old Crone. The Lord assures Gavin that he knows where the Green Chapel is and that it is not very far away. He invites Gavin to stay with them for several days and enjoy their company. So this is what all about, my friends. Sir Gavin and Green-NET, it's all about the kind of conversations during the setting of Christmas days. Next, you can see, and all other, I have given you the kind of lengthy aspects, the dialogues that usually take place between the Gavin and Arthur and other aspects which you can read. Next, friends. Yes, this is something about another story. Now, we'll talk about the major stories by Geoffrey Chaucer, Geoffrey Chaucer, as I told you, the code RBPTHLC, Roman de la Rose, Book of Duchess, Parliament of Fowls, Trailers and Cressida, House of Fame, Legend of Good Women, Canterbury Tales. Most of the times you will get bits based on the Canterbury Tales, mainly from Canterbury Tales. And most of the bits are going to be on Canterbury Tales. Sometimes you will also get bits based on Legend of Good Women. How many stories did Chaucer wanted to convey, and how many stories did he finish? How many good women were discussed in Legend of Good Women? Like that, there were bits. Which of the following is not written by Chaucer? Book of Duchess. This is an example for elegy. This is written on the death of, like, there were bits in the history of Net and Parliament of Fowls and Trailers and Cressida, and couple of bits that only we'll be talking about. So friends, this is the Book of Duchess. Short summary of Book of Duchess. This is written by Geoffrey Chaucer, and Book of Duchess, which is written by Geoffrey Chaucer, you can identify. It's a poem of dream vision, dream allegory. This did not happen in reality. This happens in the mind of the writer. Okay, and the dream vision genre, presently composed as an elegy, very important. So it's a dream allegory, it's a dream elegy. Friends, when I spoke about elegy, I spoke about certain poems. And do you know elegies and Book of Duchess? These are considered to be dream elegies, like that I spoke during my discussion with regard to elegy and pastoral elegy. If you are not, please listen to watch that video another time to understand this better. So Book of Duchess, it's an example for dream vision. It's an example for elegy. What is elegy? Elegy refers to a poem that is written on the death, and whose death? And the death of Blanche. Very important. Several times this bit was asked. Book of the Duchess, written by Geoffrey Chaucer, is written on the death of Blanche, Duchess of Lancaster. Duchess of Lancaster, wife of Geoffrey Chaucer's patron. Okay, the Royal Duke of Lancaster and John Gaunt. When in 1368 and 69, this poem is actually composed. All these are poems that we are actually talking about. So this is actually a dream vision. It's an elegy written on the death of Blanche and the Duchess of Lancaster. Very important, my friends. The poem was composed in few years after this event. It is generally considered to be flattering to both the Duke and the Duchess. It's a kind of, usually when you are a courtier, when you are serving to the court, what will happen? You need to write several poems in praise of the king. Same thing Chaucer did by writing the Book of Duchess. It is composed in octasyllabic couplet. This is very important. Book of Duchess is composed in octasyllabic couplet. What is octasyllabic couplet? A couplet that is written in the form of a couplet refers to a stanza composed in 2 lines, out of which every line includes 8 syllables. Very important. 8 syllables. So the grave is a fine and private place, but none, I think, do they embrace. So if you write that, you will find 8 syllables. So you need to get the idea. Chaucer not only introduced what? Decasyllabic couplet. He also introduced octasyllabic couplet in the book of Duchess. Remember this. This is very important for your exam. How many lines are there? 1 3 3 4. Okay, 1 3 3 4. So remember, sometimes You will also get, for example, if you are writing local JLDL examinations, you will get bits like this. How many lines are there in Tintin? How many stanzas are there in And Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner? How many lines are there in the Wasteland? Like several times these bits repeated. Remember. So some of the major points: Dream Vision, Elegy on the Death of Blanche, and composed in octasyllabic couplet. Next, friends, the poet tells of his own insomnia. Finally, upon reading Ovid's Metamorphosis, he falls asleep. And he tells the story of his dream, which begins with him awakening in a chamber covered with pictures of Trojan War. The dreamer hears the sound of a horn signaling the start of a hunt, and he joins it. As we discussed, this does not happen in reality. This happens in the mind of the writer. When, for example, see, most of the poems that are composed by St. Coleridge, and those are composed when he was drunk, when he took opium. So in insomnia only he was able to compose. After that he was not able to write. That's what most of the poems composed by St. Coleridge come under unfinished fragmentary poems. And this poem, which happens in the mind of the writer, not in reality. That's what you can see. Major points, my friends. While the deer is on the run, the dream wayward young hunting dog. There he finds a handsome young knight dressed in black. The knight in deep sorrow tells him that he lost his lady love. The knight, the Duke of Lancaster. And the knight in deep sorrow tells him that he lost his lady love. Who is that lady love? The Blanche. Lost a game of chess with fortune. The dreamer tries to console him. Who is the dreamer here? And Chaucer himself. The dreamer tries to console him, but the knight tells him he has lost more than he knows. The story of Black Knight and Lady White follows, in which the perfection of the lady is described. Lady White became the knight's wife, and they lived in harmony of years before she died. The knight blames fortune, whose and fickle's wheel spins, and until she takes away the happiness she gives. The dreamer at least perceives the true sorrow of the night, which means this is what all about that happens in the dream of the writer, that is Chaucer, where the knight who talks about that he has lost his wife. And the hunt ends with the party returning to a long castle. The dreamer awakens for real, resolves that his dream has been so curious and remarkable that it must be put into a poem. And the House of Fame, see, another important, a longer poem. The House of Fame, a longer poem written about 10 years after the Book of Duchess, runs 2158 lines, was left unfinished. So, what is the unfinished poem that is written by Chaucer, The House of Fame? Remember this. And the three extant books begin with the retelling of the Aeneid by Roman poet Virgil. You need to remember this. Who is the author of the poem Aeneid? Aeneid, which is written by Virgil, a popular poet. Virgil, Homer, Horace, popular classical poets, as found written on a brass tablet in a temple of glass in the vision of a dreamer. An eagle takes up the dreamer to a point between heaven and earth, which is the House of Fame. Remember, what is the House of Fame? The space between heaven and earth. The space between heaven and earth. This point, according to Virgil in the poem Aeneid, and where he talks about the House of Fame, this title is used by Chaucer in the poem The House of Fame, which is unfinished. Next, there the dreamer who has written many love poems but has not had much success in love in his own life may hear of the love stories going all around the world. Next, friends. Next, once in the House of Fame, the dreamer sees the great bards of ancient times, the goodness, fame of many eyes and tongues, holds court, hears, and the supplicants please. She sometimes grant them, and sometimes it does not as she please, with no thoughts not required. Chaucer satirizes fame and desire, for fame as vanity. Very, very important this. So here, Chaucer satirizes fame and the desire for fame as vanity, using the allegorical figure of fame as horrible vision of the lies and false reputation that earthly and notoriety and perpetuates. The dreamer leaves the house. He comes upon a large house made of wicked twigs, and in it every kind of speech and report are mingling together. So that's what. So House of Fame, where he actually makes fun of the concept of fame. So and like as what actually described by Virgil in the book Aeneid, that's what where he emphasizes that not to give any importance to the fame, which is not going to be truthful. Next, the Parliament of Fowls. When we look at another poem, the Parliament of Fowls. The Parliament of Fowls, this is a much shorter work in 699 lines. The only short book that is composed by Chaucer is the Parliament of Fowls. Chaucer created with introducing this form into English. The poem begins with, this is also composed in rhyme royal. Very, very important. As I told you, Trilus Cressida, which is composed in rhyme royal, and Parliament of Fowls also, which is composed in rhyme royal. Very, 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 very important. Book of Duchess, couplet, octasyllable couplet. Next, the poem begins with a discussion of the dream of Sippo. This is very important. So, the Parliament of Fowls, which deals with the dream of Scipio. And the seventh book, De Res Publica by Cicero. In it, and Scipio the younger is taken on a tour of heaven. So this is all about how they travel to the tour of heaven and hell by his grandfather Scipio and Africanus, where he is lectured on the virtue of leading a good life. Very, very, very important. Who are the characters? Where are they traveling? What is the setting? Focus on that, you will get bits. After reading this book, the poet falls asleep and dreams that Scipio Africanus takes him on a tour of his own. That is what the story of Parliament of Fowls. And Africanus and the dreamer enter a garden in which all the allegorical personages pertaining to romantic love reside. They witness the gathering of birds for its St. Valentine's Day, the day they choose their mates for the year before Dame Nature. There is a dispute over the favor of and formulae. Though there is much discussion, the decision is eventually deferred until the next year. So this is what the story. So some and where we had a short summaries of Parliament of Fowls, short summary of House of Fame, short summary of Book of Duchess. Next, friends, Trilus and Cressida, and which you can see Trilus and Cressida. What is this? This is a poem that is composed by Geoffrey Chaucer. It's a poem that is composed by Geoffrey Chaucer. It retells in Middle English the tragic story of lovers Trilus and Cressida. Very, very important. This is a tragic poem, Trilus and Cressida. It talks about the tragic story of the two lovers, set against a background of war during Siege of Troy. Very, very important. What is the setting? Siege of Troy. It was written in rhyme royal. We discussed a stanza of 7 lines, probably completed during 1380s. Many Chaucer scholars regard it as the poet's finest work, as a finished long poem. It is finished, not unfinished, and is more self-contained than the better known, ultimately unfinished, the Canterbury Tales. You know, the Canterbury Tales, which is an unfinished play, and the Legend of Good Women, it's an unfinished poem. Both are unfinished poems. The poem is often considered source of the phrase, all good things must come to an end. The story, which is based on this timeline. What is the timeline? All good things must come to an end. Yes, we will get good things only at the end, not at the beginning. We usually get a lot of trouble, pains at the beginning, and we will get only good things at the end of the story, at the end of our life. And when we want to enjoy our life by the end, and we are not going to be in this world. So although Trilus is a character from ancient Greek literature, the expanded story of him as a lover was of medieval origin. The first known version is from Bernard de Saint and Maurice poem Roman de Troyes. But Chaucer's principal source appears to have been Boccaccio's. Very, very important. So what became a source for writing Trials and Cressida? Boccaccio, who rewrote a tale of his own ill and Philostrato. Chaucer attributed the story to a Lollius, whom he also mentions in House of Fame. So he took inspiration from this, source from this. Next, Chaucer's version and can be said to reflect a less cynical and less misogynist hating against women. And next guys, the poem had an important legacy for later writers. Robert Henderson's Scott poem, The Testament of and Cressida. Robert Henderson, we discussed Robert Henderson, one of the Scottish Azurians, and he took inspiration from this book. Okay, Trials and Cressida, Trials and Cressida became a source for Robert Henderson for writing the Testament of Cressida. Remember this. In historical editions of the English Trials and Cressida, Henderson's not required. Shakespeare's tragedy and Trials and Cressida. This is very important. Trials and Cressida, same title, which is written by two important writers. Chaucer, a poem, and Shakespeare, it's a play. So Shakespeare's tragedy, it's an example for tragedy written by Chaucer. So confuse titles. Trials and Cressida by Chaucer, it's a poem, and Trials and Cressida, it's a play, it's a tragedy by Shakespeare. And although much darker in tone, was also based on the part of the material. Trials and Cressida is usually considered to be a courtly romance, very, very important. So it's a romance, it's a tragic romance. It's a faithful romance where the lovers and they are not able to fulfill their own love and they sacrifice their love by the end. It's also a tragic poem. Although the generic classification is an area of significant debate in most of English and the aspects. Next, this is again something about Chaucer, and we are talking about very important one, Legend of Good Woman, another important text, another important poem composed by Chaucer. And this is a poem in the form of dream vision. Friends, several times in the history of NET examination, they asked this term, which of the following is not a dream vision? Which of the following is dream allegory, dream elegy? Like that, you will get bits. These are so technical, but you will get bits. So, it's a poem in the form of dream vision, Geoffrey Chaucer during the 14th century. The poem is the third longest Chaucer's work after Canterbury Tales and Trials and Cressida. Possibly the first significant work in English to use iambic pentameter or decasyllabic couplet. Very, very important. Two are the most important poems that are composed in decasyllabic couplet, heroic couplet, and iambic pentameter lines. That is, first one is Canterbury Tales, greatest one. Next one is Legend of Good Women. Very, very important. Several times these bits were asked, which of the following poems of Chaucer were composed in heroic couplets, decasyllabic couplets, iambic pentameter lines, Legend of Good Women, and Canterbury Tales, and which he later used throughout the Canterbury Tales. The form of the heroic couplet would become a significant part of English literature. We have gone through this as a part of prosody. I explained you. The prologue, the Canterbury Tales, the Legend of Good Women. The prologue describes how Chaucer is and reprimanded by the god of love and his queen. This story. Next, and Alcesta for his works such as Troilus and Cressida, depicting women in poor light. Cressida is made to seem an inconstant in love in that earlier work, and Alcesta demands a poem of Chaucer extolling the virtues of women and their good deeds. There are many. This poem is all about and Legend of Good Women. What are the qualities of good women? What women actually requires? And as a whole in this poem, where he talks about one of the major important women and who says that what she wanted in her life. What does a woman want in her life? Majority of the women. And according to these stories, one of the stories, major stories, according to the major character, and the major point that every woman expects in the world is controlling the other gender, which means controlling husband, controlling her boyfriend. That gives a woman the best pleasure in the world, not anything else, not ornaments, not pleasure, not having food or anything else, only the control over husband, control over the other gender, the man. That is required to the woman. That is what is described in the story, in the poem Legend of Good Women. What good women require, want. The one of the most important thing in the world is good women and wants control over the other gender, control over husband, control over boyfriend, or anything you can say. So that usually leads to destruction. Yes. Next, guys, the incomplete nature of the poem. This is incomplete. No, he wanted to convey, he wanted to narrate, and more than 20 types of women, but he was able to complete only just 8. See, poem is suggested by Chaucer's retraction from the Canterbury Tales, which calls the work of 25 ladies. Yes, he wanted to convey, he wanted to talk about 25 women, 25 types of women who want and different things from the world. And somebody says, there are wonderful dialogue, romantic dialogues, my friends. You will have all that. Some women want happiness, some women want fruit or nice food, nice clothes, nice ornaments, and a nice husband and pleasure at the bed. And some women want and the control over the king, control over her husband, and he talks about the good nature of good women. In Legend of Good Women, he wanted to narrate 25 important types of women in the world. But 15 and 19 are also numbers used to describe the work. And into the 19, which means only he was able to complete only 19 types of women. And in the prologue, several women are mentioned like this: Esther, Penelope, Marcia, and Catunus, Cato the Younger, Lavinia, and Polyxena, and Laodamia. Next, ladies in waiting of Alcestis mentioned. The prologue might suggest an unfulfilled structure. So all these are different characters where he described. So this character, which is used by Wordsworth in the title of a poem, same title, this character which reflects in the poetry of Wordsworth, one of the poem which is composed by Wordsworth. So you need to know, you need to remember certain characters. Which of the following is not a character of Legend of Good Women? You need to know how many stories you wanted to convey, 25. How many you had to finish? 19. Like that. Next, friends, the command of Queen Alcestis is said by John Lydgate in Fall of Princess. And we are talking about inversion to be a poetic account of an actual request for the poem Anne Bohemia, who came to England in 1382 to marry Richard II. So he has used different characters, different names, and in the form of the poem Legend of Good Women. If true, this would make Chaucer an early poet laureate, Joan of Kent. Richard's mother is also sometimes considered and a model of Alcestis. So this character which is used, maybe the mother of Richard II, maybe the bride and who came to see Richard II. The supposed royal command is one suggested reason for the poem's unfinished state, as Chaucer got bored with the task and gave up. He finished in the middle. And whether the poem's state is due to Chaucer's becoming bored with its uncertain, but it is not now regarded among his best work despite being popular when first. Man of law. Okay, not required. Next, friends. Next, when we see it is actually a satire, yes, these are very important for us, for our examination. Legend of Good Women, it is actually a satire against women, although this is not widely agreed with. It's a satire on the idea of taking stories of classical origin, twisting them to give them contemporary moral meanings. So he wanted to convey different women and different moral values that they are symbol of. This would suggest that the poem is not only an early use of heroic couplet, but also one of the finest mock heroic poems. So this is also considered a kind of mock heroic kind of poem. So mock mock narrative kind of poetry. The nature of the poem with its separate legends make dating it difficult, but it is clearly placed Trials and Cressida. Chaucer seems to have returned to the work a decade later too. Tennyson used the poem as the theme of his own poem, A Dream of Fairy Woman. So he also wrote this. And the same poem, Legend of Good Women, what Chaucer spoke about, same thing is conveyed by Alfred Lord Tennyson in the poem Dream of a Fairy Woman. Okay, sorry, Dream of Fairy Woman. So this is again something about our concept. Now we are talking about the major important text, the Canterbury Tales, my friends. So based on this, you will get a lot of bits. It is composed in and heroic couplet, decasyllable couplet, and how many stories you wanted to convey? 120. How many stories to? How many characters are there? 30, including the poet 30, excluding the poet 29. So all these are repeated net bits, my friends. How many characters are there? 29, excluding the poet, including the poet 30. How many stories are narrated by every character on to and fro on the way to the entrance of and Thomas Bucket? Two stories on one way and two stories on the next way. Total every character 4 stories. So 4 into 30, 120 stories you wanted to convey. But how many stories you finished? 24. So all these are repeated bits. Several times these were repeated, my friends. You need to be careful about this. See, it's a collection of 24 stories that runs over 17,000 lines. Chaucer wanted to convey 120 stories, but he finished only 24 net bit, remember. And how many lines? 17,000 lines. And written by Geoffrey Chaucer, nothing required. Chaucer became controller of customs and justice of peace in 1389, clerk of king's works. So as a king, as a courtier, he went to the entrance. Usually in usually in India, most of the ministers, most of the prime minister, chief ministers, they visit the Hindu preacher, they visit Tirumala, Tirupati, and they take blessings of God and Lord Venkateshwara. In the same way, most of the Christians at the time, they still they visit the Sir Thomas and Bucket and Shrine, like how Muslims they visit Kadapa Dargah and or else even I have been to and Agra Dargah. So you can see that. So the process of visiting in the same way these pilgrims they are on a pilgrimage to the entrance of Sir Thomas and Bucket. So it was during these years that Chaucer began working on the most. And the tales, mostly written in words. How are these stories written? Poetry. Next, and it is in the form of storytelling. A group of pilgrims, how many? 29 plus 1, 30. Next, it's at Canterbury to visit the shrine of Saint Thomas Becket at the Canterbury Cathedral. Very, very important. Where are they traveling to? Next, St. Thomas Becket, the entrance of St. Thomas Becket. And where is the place? Canterbury. They are on the way to visit this place. The prize of this contest is free meal at the Tabard Inn. So the process of narrating story, who will win? If somebody wins from the story, and he will have a free meal. This is the contest. A free meal where? Tabard Inn. Okay, at the south back of their return. So on the return, they will have a wonderful meal if somebody is able to narrate a good story. This is what the concept. Next, friends, after a long list of works written earlier in his career, including Trials in Cressida, House of Fame, Parliament of Owls, Canterbury Tales is near unanimously seen as magnum opus, the greatest work written by Chaucer, the Canterbury Tales. What is the only greatest work written by Chaucer? The Canterbury Tales. Uses the tales, descriptions of its characters to paint ironic and critical portrait of English society. Very, very important. Through these characters, he wanted to convey the other side of British. So other side of English society at time, particularly of the church. That is what he is called the morning star of English Renaissance. He directly, indirectly made a number of comments on the Catholic Church of English by introducing these characters. Chaucer's use of such wide range of classes, types of people was without precedent in English. Next, friends, although the characters are fictional, fictional, they still offer a variety of insights and customs and practices of the time. This is what very important. Through these characters, he conveyed and what customs, what cultural aspects, what social standards the people had. So he created all that. Next, various social classes represented in these stories, and all pilgrims are on a spiritual quest. So all pilgrims, they are on a spiritual quest. Structurally, the collection resembles and Boccaccio's Decameron. Very, very, very important. What is the source? What is the source of the Canterbury Tales? Several times this bit was asked, my friends. Remember, Boccaccio's Decameron. This is the source for writing the Canterbury Tales. Next, it has been suggested that the greatest contribution of the Canterbury Tales to English literature was the popularization of the English vernacular in mainstream literature as opposite to French and Italian. So he made the concept of English vernacular into the modern English. That is the greatness. While Chaucer clearly states, addresses many of his poems, the intended audiences of the Canterbury Tales is more difficult to determine. Chaucer was a courtier. He was a court clerk, and leading to some belief that he was mainly a court poet who wrote exclusively for nobility. Not required. Next, you can see the Canterbury Tales is generally thought to have been incomplete at the end of Chaucer's life. This is an unfinished poem, incomplete work. In the general prologue, some 30 pilgrims are introduced, apart from including the poet. According to the prologue, Chaucer's intention was to write 4 stories from the perspective of each pilgrim. So how many? 30 into 4, so 120. And to each on the way to and from their ultimate destination, St. Thomas Becket's Shrine. So how many stories you wanted to convey? 120. Several times this bit was asked, my friends. Next, you can see, although perhaps incomplete, the Canterbury Tales is revered as one of the most important works in English literature. Very, very important. Next, the Canterbury Tales begins with the introduction of each pilgrims making their journey to Canterbury to the shrine of Thomas Becket. And who are the pilgrims? You need to know the characters. A knight. Very, very important characters, all these are. So first, knight, very, very important. Square. Next, a monk. And you can see, prioress. Next, you can see weaver. Next, Franklin. Next, you can see another important character like the partner, summoner, Chaucer himself, wife of Bath. Very, very important characters. All these are some of the characters. Next, and congregating at the Tabard Inn. Where are they going to meet? They are going to meet at the Tabard Inn. They are going to meet at the Tabard Inn. The pilgrims decide to tell stories to pass their time on the way to Canterbury. The host of the Tabard Inn sets the rules for the tales. Each of pilgrims will tell 2 stories on the way to Canterbury, 2 stories on the return. The host will decide whose tale is best, meaningfulness and for fun. And they decide to draw lots to see who will tell the finest first tale, and the knight receive the honor. Who will tell the first story? The knight tells the first story. This is what a few aspects with regard to Canterbury Tales, my friends. I hope you had some kind of understanding with regard to our story. Okay, right, guys, we'll be meeting tomorrow with a new topic. Okay, so until then, see you guys, and we'll meet tomorrow, same time. Right then, bye bye.